Hi guys, James at Rampant Lion Reviews again for you today with another beer review. For this one, we are going to stick to Hong Kong and we're going to return to a brewery that has now featured on the channel a couple of times before. I've had some really nice beers from these guys over the last little while, a few different styles, and if people were to ask me about this brewery, I would say that they are just very solid all round, and their beers always have this really nice, light, clean, drinkable mouthfeel. So very good in the hot Hong Kong weather, of course. But the beer that we're going to have a look at today is one of their latest releases at the time of filming. It's a style that I haven't reviewed on the channel before from a Hong Kong brewery, if memory serves me correctly. But I did actually try this beer the other day at its launch, and I know it's a pretty good one actually. So I'm quite curious to see how the canned version weighs up against the draft version, if you like. So yeah, really cool to have this one for you here on the channel, especially at such an early stage in its life. So yeah, hopefully this beer is as good as I remember. Hopefully it makes for an interesting review, and as always, I hope that you guys watching enjoy my take on this one as well. So yeah, for this review then, we are going to head over to Hong Kong Island. We're going to go to the eastern part of the island, Chai Wan, and we're having a look then at another beer from the wonderful Hong Kong Beer Company. So this particular beer is called One Mo. It comes in at 6% ABV, and as you can see on the can, this one is a cold IPA, and it was released at the very end of August, start of September 2024. So yeah, I tried this one the other day on draft at Craftissimo in Sheung Wan, so I know this is pretty nice, but like I say, curious to see how the canned version is going to be actually. So let's crack on with this one and see what it's going to have in store for us. A 6% cold IPA, if memory serves me correctly, my first cold IPA from a Hong Kong brewery here on Rampant Lion Reviews. So, as always with my reviews then, I'll tell you a little bit about the brewery before we taste the beer. If you want to get straight to the tasting though, just fast forward. All the usual links can be found in the video description below. That's the brewery website, the link to my other reviews that I've done from Hong Kong Beer Company before, and we will no doubt add more to that list at some point in the near future. But there's all the usual social media down there. If you want to see more reviews, do please consider subscribing to the channel. The support that you give is massively appreciated. And remember, you can go into the channel homepage and search for beer using the geography tagging system. So just go in there, use the little search bar, put in your hometown, state, county, province, whatever you like. If I've reviewed beers from the area that you search for, they will pop up. Failing that though, you can check out the playlist of beers from different countries. You'll find this one in the Hong Kong playlist along with a number of other things. That's being added to whenever I get the opportunity. And hopefully we can add some more cold IPAs from the Hong Kong breweries as well. But do make sure you check out the playlist of beers from other countries and territories as well, because there are some very interesting things on the channel these days. So yeah, let's go on and I'll tell you a wee bit about Hong Kong Beer Company once again. And this one is a bit of a longer history because it is the oldest brewery here in the Hong Kong SAR. So the history of the Hong Kong Beer Company goes back to 1995 when the company was established as South China Brewing Company. So the man behind this company was David Haynes, who is originally from Colorado over in the US, a very good beer state as we know, but he is a clinical psychologist by trade, but also a big beer enthusiast. So his wife worked as a China analyst in one of the big financial firms, and she encouraged him to kind of follow his passion and go for it, and found his own company. So he went to the US to visit various different microbreweries and do some fact finding, and around this time David encountered Peter Bordeaux, who was the president of Sazerac, a major American beverage distributor. But after asking a lot of questions about what David wanted to do, he actually agreed to help finance the startup. So yeah, he got quite lucky. But it took about a year to navigate the Hong Kong bureaucracy, but they managed to get the legal right to brew beer, which was involved quite a few bureaucratic hurdles from what I understand. But they opened the brewery in the Vita Tower in Aberdeen on the south side of Hong Kong Island, and they released their first beer called Crooked Island Ale, and this beer basically spread by word of mouth to different pubs across Hong Kong. But the brewery had a few years of success, and then it started to kind of sputter a little bit, and eventually they became a contract brewery. But the company was acquired by Harmony Assets in 2003, and at this point the name was changed to Hong Kong Beer Company, and Harmony distributed their beers through their bar chain El Grande, but production was only about 120,000 litres of beer per year by 2009, and the quality of the beer apparently continued to kind of suffer during this period, and it was, again, they eventually ended up contract brewing again. But in 2013, the brewery was purchased by Devin Otto Kimball and Daniel Flores, who are the team behind Brewworks Brewery and Restaurant down in Singapore. But they stayed involved with the company until 2020, but under their guidance, the brewery was completely revamped from the ground up, and they brought in brewmaster Simon Pesh, who previously worked for Pyramid Brewery in Berkeley in California, and he stayed with them until 2018. During this time, they relocated the brewery to Chai Wan on the eastern edge of Hong Kong Island, and they operate a 20 US barrel brew kit there, which is about 3,200 litres, and this comes from GNVW Systems, and today they're producing in the region of 600,000 litres of beer per year. There was another change of ownership in 2020, and the current brew team is headed by Philip Rankmore and Matt Bradley under the guidance of James Waters. So Philip is from Sydney and originally studied chemical engineering and later gained his brewing diploma from the Institute of Brewing and Distilling before going to work in Korea for Goose Island and then Budnamu. And he also spent some time teaching brewers in Korea and Hong Kong as well. But under his guidance, they've released a lot of new beers and revitalised a lot of things as well. And a lot of people credit Philip with having kind of turned around the fortunes of the brewery actually and getting them off the ground again. So yeah, it's kind of interesting. It's kind of interesting to hear people talk about this brewery because they have been around for such a long time and they're now starting to get some very, very good recognition. But as of September 2024, when I'm filming this review for you, these guys have produced around 85 different kinds of beer according to Untappd, and that number will no doubt continue to increase as time goes on. So yeah, that's everything I can really tell you about Hong Kong Beer Company for the moment. If you want to learn more about these guys, you can check out the brewery website, you can follow them on Facebook and Instagram to keep up to date with all the latest goings on, and you can check out the Rate Beer, Untappd and Beer Advocate pages to learn a little bit more about all the different beers that these guys have done. So yeah, let's go on and have a little look at this one and see what it has. So I'll let you have a wee look at the artwork on this beer before we open it up. You can see it's quite similar to what we've seen from Hong Kong Beer Company before. This is apparently part of an experimental series, so we might see more of these over the next little while. But there you can see, right in the middle of the can, Hong Kong Beer Company. I do like the symbol on this one actually. But yeah, like I said earlier, this one comes in at 6% ABV, a cold IPA. It says on the side here, crisp and refreshing cold IPA, second in our small batch pilot series, conceptualized by brewer Moses. Pilsner malt and Lal Brew Nova Lager yeast create a clean, light-bodied canvas for premium US and New Zealand hops. Balanced bitterness lasting into sublime tropical and coconut aftertaste. I'm guessing when they say coconut, it's probably going to have a little bit of sabro or talus in it in that case. And it also contains a little bit of rice as well, which is interesting. So yeah, rice often gives you a little bit more of a kind of oily mouthfeel in your beers, and that would kind of make sense when I think about some of the other ones we've had from Hong Kong Beer Company in the past. But yeah, one more cold IPA, 6% ABV. Let's get this guy out into the glass and see what it's going to give us. Yeah, let's do this. There we are. Ooh, I have to say that looks very, very nice. So before the head disappears on this one, you can see that it poured with about a finger of a bumpy, I would say, very slightly off-white head there. You can see that is just fading away to be a very kind of thin, foamy layer now, but you can see some medium-sized bubbles sitting on the surface of the liquid, a few foamier ones going up toward as you go further up it, of course, and you can see a little bit of a nice kind of, there's a few bubbles just kind of sticking toward the side of the glass and gradually making their way up toward the surface there. But you can see this beer's got a lovely kind of pale golden straw colour to it, of course. Remember, the colour of your beer depends on a few things. One, the type of malts that you use, that goes a long way to determining your EBC rating. Two, length of your wort boil is also going to play a role, because the longer you boil the wort, the more the sugars caramelise and thus you get a darker colour of beer. But any barrel aging that you do or adjuncts you put into the beer will affect its colour as well. But you know, you don't often have to care about that when it comes to any type of IPA, to be honest with you. But yeah, the cold IPA, I think basically it is an IPA but brewed with a a lager yeast, in honesty, and it has a bit of a longer fermentation time, because I have to admit I wasn't too sure exactly what the technical difference between an IPL and a cold IPA was, to be honest with you. I think it's to do with the malt base and stuff like that. So yeah, something I do need to clarify a little bit more actually in my head going forward, because yeah, the IPL and the cold IPA are a bit different. The IPL is quite a difficult style to get right in my experience, but the cold IPAs I've had have been pretty damn good. So yeah, nothing really surprising about this beer in terms of its appearance when you consider what style it is. Let's go on and have a little look at the aroma then and see what we get out of this one. Very, very curious. Oh, yeah, it does smell very, very nice, this one. And I have to say, one of the things that I quite often found, the reason I say that an IPL was quite a difficult style to get right was because quite often it was they would come across as being a little bit boozy, to be honest with you, and it was finding that sweet spot between being kind of hoppy and bitter and not having too much booziness, because the lager has less malt in it than the ales do, generally speaking. Whereas I think the cold IPAs, I think the malt base is like a proper. It has got, quite often they will have Pilsner malt and these lighter feeling malts in them, but they do have basically the same level of malt that an IPA is going to have, rather than just being the kind of lager malt base, if you like. I think that is the key difference, in all honesty. But correct me on that in the comment section below if you know better. But yeah, the aroma of this one is really, really, really nice. And I've had some really good examples of this style over the last wee while, I have to say. But if you know the style, this one kind of isn't doing anything surprising. It's just very, very well done. But it's got that lovely kind of oily fruitiness to it. I wouldn't be surprised if it's Nelson Sauvin that's in this one, and I've got a feeling, I think it's like Nelson Sauvin and Sabro that are in this one, in all honesty. I wouldn't be surprised if it was Tala, if there was a bit of Talus as well. I do see what they say about coconut, but I'm pretty sure there's Nelson Sauvin in this. But yeah, the aroma is great. Yeah, big oily fruity character, very light, crisp, slightly oily malt base to it, and then yeah, you've got that nice kind of bigger green component as well. So yeah, the way that all of that kind of pieces together, I think, is really, really nice in this one. But yeah, let's just break it down and describe it for you a wee bit more in depth, as we always do. So the backbone of the beer, you do have a little bit of that kind of fresh, white bready bread crust in there. There's wee hints of cracker, of course. Quite an airy and quite light white bready character in there as well. Toward the back of the nose, you can definitely smell that kind of crisper aspect of the Pilsner malt in there. You can certainly smell, I often find when they use rice in beers, it gives you this kind of nice oily character, which is quite distinctive, and you can smell that oily ricey sweetness in the middle of the nose with this one too. But I'm certainly getting a good little bit of like biscuit, McVitie's digestive biscuit. I don't know if I would go as far as saying straight up sweet caramel, but you do have that little bit of I would say it's more like a kind of concentrated oily McVitie's digestive biscuit. So yeah, all of these things in the malt base are things that you would expect of this style. So yeah, quite happy with that. The yeasty character at the back of the nose is kind of interesting too. It's like quite crackery and quite sort of farmhousey, in honesty. So yeah, there's a little bit of just that crackery, bready type note from the yeast at the back of the nose there as well. Green component in this one is quite big and quite bold as well. So when it comes to IPAs, you have three kinds of hoppings that you can do. You can do early addition hopping, which takes place within the first hour of the wort boil. That gives you mainly bitterness and a deeper, danker flavour and aroma. You've got late addition hopping, which takes place after the wort boil is complete. or late edition hopping, sorry, which takes place in the last half hour of the wort boil. So that gives you a little bit of bitterness, mainly flavour and aroma, and it contributes to a brighter green component, of course. Then dry hopping, which is the one that takes place after the wort boil is complete, and that's the one that gives you all flavour and aroma, and again, brighter green component as well. So cold IPAs, I don't know if there's a trend about these using a little bit of all the hoppings, or if they lean more toward late edition and dry hopping. You know, West Coast IPAs tend to use all three, New England IPAs tend to rely on late edition and dry hopping. So yeah, but this beer does have a little bit of that depth and dankness to its green component. So I wouldn't be surprised if there was a little bit of early edition hopping in this beer, I have to say that. But yeah, there's a teeny little bit of earthiness in this one, but not all that much. A little bit of herbal character as well, but some nice big floral aromatic notes coming out of this one as well. So yeah, big floral aromaticity in there, some nice kind of grassy characters as well, and yeah, it does have a little bit of yeah, it really does have a little bit of a kind of just deep dank, almost. There's a little bit of piney resin character in this one too, which is interesting. So that makes me think, yeah, maybe there is a wee bit of early edition hopping, but yeah, you've got a more zesty, grassy character at the front of the nose there as well. On the fruity side of things, like I said, I suspect this beer has Nelson Sauvin in it because it's very, very distinctive. It's Nelson Sauvin, New Zealand hops, 16% alpha acid, gives you this kind of white, green, grapey sort of thing, almost gooseberry-like as well. So for me, the Nelson Sauvin's really kind of sticking out of this one. Hallertau Blanc could be a possibility as well, but they say New Zealand hops, so yeah. You know, Enigma from Australia would have been an option too for this, going by the aroma, but again, American and New Zealand hops. But I think the other one, just going by the aroma, and there's a bit of this kind of pinky grapefruit sort of thing in there, that's usually Talus. I'm trying to see if there's a bit of orange in it as well, because that would normally be Sabro. But I think it's, yeah, I think those three hops are the potential ones that are in here. Bit of Nelson Sauvin, I think Talus is more likely, and maybe a wee bit of Sabros. But Nelson Sauvin and Talus, I'm pretty sure in this one. But yeah, so yeah, bit of kind of bright pink grapefruit in there. There is a wee touch of like drier apricot or something like that. Big oily white, green, grapey gooseberry notes. And yeah, you have that little bit of coconut and things as well. So yeah, all in all, the aroma of this beer is very, very nice, and it gets a big thumbs up from me. Take a bit of time to enjoy that before you get stuck into it, but I think it is about time that we try this beer and see what it's all about. So yeah, this one is the One Malt Cold IPA, 6% ABV from Hong Kong Beer Company in Chai Wan on Hong Kong Island here in the Hong Kong SAR. Slàinte, skål, cheers. Yeah, it's pretty damn good actually. I do enjoy a cold IPA because it's just like a kind of oily, hoppy lager beer almost in a way. And that's the thing, is they don't feel overly boozy. I guess it's because of that higher, you know, that kind of more full malt content, if you like. But yeah, that is really, really nicely done actually. Kind of reminds me a wee bit of a beer that I had from the Munich Brew Mafia, as they were called, the Don Limon. It was a Citra Pils. Kind of reminds me of that one a little bit actually. I remember that beer from years ago. I don't know if Munich Brew Mafia are still in existence though, but yeah, this beer is really damn good. So I hope this is one they consider keeping actually, because it would be a nice addition to their core range. They do a very good Pilsner, of course, which I hope to review on the channel at some stage. But yeah, really, really good stuff from Hong Kong Beer Company once again, but not surprised because they're doing some very good stuff these days. So yeah, where do we start with this beer then? I mean, it has this kind of clean, crisp mouthfeel that I talked about that is, for me, the kind of trademark of Hong Kong Beer Company, and it's just got that light, nice, drinkable, a little bit of bitterness and things like that as well. Everything you would want from the cold IPA. This beer really delivers on that. It's not surprising, but it is well done, and you can't ask for much more these days. So yeah, let's just break this beer down then and describe the flavour for you a bit more in depth, as we always do. Middle third of your palate then, the backbone of the beer. So yeah, for me, the backbone of this beer, in that middle third of your palate, you can feel that nice white bready, bread crusty backbone there. That goes together really nicely. As you move further forward on that middle third of your palate, you get a little touch of like woodiness out of the beer, and you can feel that above that bread crust, you've just got that little bit of kind of Jacob's cream cracker as well, which I do really like. So, yeah, on top of that kind of crackery layer, you start to get a little bit of a white bready character out of this one, and it's quite airy and fluffy in a sense, but yeah, it's a little touch airy and fluffy, but overall, I would say it's a little bit drier, which is kind of interesting. But the further you go into the aftertaste, you do start to get a little bit of sweetness out of the bready side of things. But sitting on top of that bready character, you've got a wee bit of that kind of McVitie's digestive biscuity sort of thing, which is nice. So yeah, you've got that fluffy white bready sort of thing in there, that wee bit of McVitie's digestive biscuit, and then yeah, at the back of that middle third of your palate, you start to get the kind of Pilsner malty crispness out of the beer. So remember, sweeter flavours come out further forward, more dry and bitter flavours tend to come out further back. But on top of the bready layer, pardon me, you start to get the McVitie's digestive biscuity side of things. So like in the middle of your palate, there's this kind of oily circle sitting there, which is like, it's a little bit like it's got a little bit of that kind of oily caramel. There's maybe a little bit of caramel in the dead centre of your palate, then there's a more oily, biscuity sort of thing coming out of this one. So yeah, you've got that more oily, biscuity sort of thing coming out of the beer, and that concentrated oily biscuit in the middle of your palate. Then as you move further out toward the side of that, yeah, there's a wee bit more of that kind of McVitie's digestive biscuit kind of crispness, like dryness. Is dryness the right word? That crispy sweetness almost, I think, is a good way to describe that. So yeah, I think we've covered the middle third of the palate pretty much as we can there. So yeah, let's go to the back third of your palate then. The only other thing I can think to add about the middle third of the palate is that you do get a wee bit more oiliness out of it into the aftertaste too, and that's likely to be something that's provided by the rice. So yeah, the way that goes together is quite interesting. So yeah, the border region between middle and back third of your palate, you get that nice little bit of bready build up in there. So you can feel the white bready character. You've got that kind of fluffy, airy white bready character in the base. Then above that, you've got it's a wee bit. It's still bready, but it just feels that bit more kind of dry and crisp, like the Pilsner malt almost. But the base of that, the base of that back third of your palate is a little bit more. The base of that back third of your palate, it's got the little bit of kind of. It's got the kind of bread crusty note in the base, and then as you go above that, you get the cracker again, which was a little bit drier. Remember, the back third of your palate, the flavours are going to be a little bit drier almost, but then yeah, above that you get the white bready layer, which feels quite tall and lighter and more airy in this case. You get a bit more kind of crackery and almost farmhousey flavour out of it, but you can feel the dry crispness of the Pilsner malt just creeping over the top of that, and you've also just got a little bit of a kind of drier, biscuity character creeping over the top there too. And then it's all about the yeasty side of things. Yeah, it's all about the yeasty side of things on the top of that back third of your palate too. So that's quite nice. Let's have a wee look at the yeasty side of things then. So the yeasty side of things, for me at the centre, you do have a little bit of this kind of slightly sweet, almost wholemeal brown bready character in there. As you move out from that, it's a little bit more kind of white bready, if you like, and then yeah, you've got a wee bit of a more sweet brown bread in the middle, more white bready note around the edge, then just a little bit of that kind of more crisp bread crusty sort of thing too. But yeah, definitely back third of your palate, you can feel the flavour is taller. Then as you move further forward into the middle third of your tongue, it just kind of condenses down and squashes together that little bit more. So yeah, I like how that goes together in this one. Big thumbs up from me. Yeah, hoppy side of things then. Back corners of the palate, you've got a good little bit of earthy kind of character in there. So yeah, you can feel that nice little bit of earthy note in there. And as you move further forward, you can feel the pine resiny notes come out of this one. So it does have a little bit of that kind of piney resiny character, which is quite interesting as you come further forward. So that's usually an indicator of early edition hopping, unless there's a wee bit of like Chinook or something like that in here. But yeah, as you reach the kind of front corners of your palate, it's got a little bit more sort of floral aromaticity to it. It's a little bit more kind of floral and spicy. And then yeah, around the front curve of the tongue, it's a wee bit lighter and more sort of grassy, I would say, a little bit zesty almost, which I find quite interesting. So yeah, I do like how that goes together. So on the front third of your palate then, that's the last thing we need to talk about here. So front third of your palate, the border region between front third and middle third of your palate. Again, you get that little bit of bready build up in there, the white bread in the base, then the more kind of Pilsner malty dryness on top, the base of that front third of your palate, white bready bread crust, a little bit of cracker, yeah, white bready bread crust, a little bit of cracker, and then the white bread, and then yeah, a wee bit of that Pilsner malty note there, and then above that you get that nice oily bubble where the juicy fruity esters just kind of roll their way out of the beer. So yeah. So yeah, for me, the fruity side of this beer, you have the fruity side of this beer for me is it's kind of what I expected from the aroma, in all honesty. When you go to the back of that front third of your palate, there's a little touch of a pink grapefruity thing. Now that I've tried this one, I'm thinking it's more likely Sabro that's in this than Talus. It's kind of interesting. Yeah. There's not, in the aroma I was getting quite a wee bit of a grapefruity character to this one, in all honesty, but there's only a little bit of that at the back of that front third of your palate. But as you move further forward, it's all about the kind of white green grapey type flavours. There's maybe a tiny little bit of apricot in the middle, as I was picking up before, but yeah, further beyond that, yeah, as you move further forward, you get a little bit of coconut out of it, and I get more of a little bit of an orangey character. And for me, that's Sabro. The two hops that can give you that coconutty sort of thing are Talus and Sabro, and Talus is a daughter of Sabro, if I remember correctly. But yeah, it's really, really nicely done. This, as I say, it's such a nice drinkable cold IPA. This one. I don't think there's anything else we need to say about the flavour, in honesty. Yeah, let's round off then with a wee look at the mouthfeel. For me, it's a light-bodied beer, top end of light body potentially. Carbonation has a wee bit of crispness to it, but overall this one's quite oily and quite smooth, very clean, as I said. It's typical of Hong Kong Beer Company in my experience. In terms of the IBUs with this one, what would we say? Yeah, 30 or 40 IBUs. But as I say, I think my palate might have adjusted, used to drinking bitter beers again these days, so I think this one could potentially be a little bit heavier in its IBU than that. So yeah, it could be about 50, maybe 60 IBUs this one at most, but at the end it feels lower than that. It's not going to blow the head off you in terms of bitterness basically, but the malt, sort of said, a little bit drier underneath, smooth in the middle, oily and sweet on top. You get more of the ricey character out of this beer into the aftertaste as well. Then the fruity side of things is, as I say, just really nice and big and oily. So yeah, it's a big thumbs up from me, this one. I really like how this beer goes together actually. So yeah, I think we can leave it at that for this one. This has been a really interesting beer to try again, and I've really enjoyed it. So I hope that Hong Kong Beer Company consider keeping this one as part of their core range, or potentially doing it as like a summer release, something like that. I think it'd be really good. So yeah, I think we can leave it there. This was One Mo, a cold IPA at 6% ABV. Really nicely done, and definitely worth trying if you happen to come across it. Very in keeping as well with the sort of vibe, I would say, that kind of clean, drinkable sort of vibe I think that you often get from the Hong Kong Beer Company beers. So yeah, let's leave it at that. Once again, thank you for watching my beer reviews. Until the next time, please like, subscribe, share, all the usual YouTube stuff. Let me know your own thoughts on this beer in the comment section below. Let me know what your favourite beers are from Hong Kong Beer Company as well, and we will no doubt return to these guys again at some point in the very near future. But until then, Slàinte, Skål, cheers. Check out my social media, check out Hong Kong Beer Company social media as well, and I'll see you guys in another review very shortly. Slàinte, Skål, and cheers.